What's happening, everybody? Good afternoon, Tim and Daruv. Hopefully, you guys are having a great week so far. I know I am. As I mentioned last week, you'll notice that my shelves behind me are much emptier than normal. Getting ready to move. Not too far. Actually, just only a couple blocks, but over the next several months, my backdrop will be changing because be moving to a new house and slowly start building an office for myself, so I don't have to share I don't have to share a room with anybody. So that'll be nice. But this is going to be a great week because we've got something new. This is probably the first time that I'm a little nervous about doing one of these blind because I have literally no idea what this is. So it should be a good time. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be doing. So we're doing time-weighted returns by Luke Stanke. So this is, he says right off the bat that working with financial data is hard. I don't work with financial data, so that's first off. What's going to be really fun about this, we're going to have to kind of understand what this metric even is, and then not only that, but how do we create it out of just a few values in Tableau. So, but as you can see, it's just what appears to be a running sum of a weighted return. Again, not sure what that is. I've already downloaded the data, as you can see here in Tableau. Downloaded it from a Google sheet that he provided for us, and we've got some dates. We've got, and then we've got three values. This total flows was something that he added. So we'll go ahead and hide this because we want to get this looking just right. Okay, so the good thing that we appreciate from Luke is that he gave us this link here. So let's go ahead and jump into this link, and refers to the compound growth rate of a portfolio. It breaks up the portfolio's returns into separate intervals based on incoming and outgoing cash flows. Okay, we have a formula here. So we've got TWR, time weighted return, equals some stuff here. So N is the number of subperiods. HP is I don't even know what HP is, but it's the end value. Okay, we've got end value minus the sum of beginning value and cash flow. Okay, so we've got that divided by that same calculation. And then HPN is the return for subperiod N. Okay. So we get some examples here. So 100,850 minus 100,000. So we have, right, and then divided by, so this is, all right, so you get a 0.8% return. And then the next month is an additional contribution of $1,000. All right, so we get the 102 minus the difference of that divided by the difference of that equals 1%. Oh, okay, so HP2 is just the next period. HP3 is the period after that, and so on and so forth. Okay. And then you can rate of return. That's not what we're dealing with, so it's just this. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and start building out. So we have, all right, so we know what why do they call it HP? HP. I don't know why they call it HP, but all right. So surely this is something that, so that kind of gets us there. But I think what we also should do, let's just do a Google search. Let's just see what Google has to say about it, right? So Tableau time weighted returns. Time weighted return. Get rid of this sidebar here. Okay, calculating time weighted return. All right, I'm trying to calculate the time weighted return. One is the percent daily change minus times one. Here is the DW previous row. Okay, so there's this problem. We got good old Jim helping him out, because Jim is a genius when it comes to the Tableau forums and just Tableau in general, but generally you're going to see Jim's name pop up on a lot of forum questions. So I'm not familiar with the financial formula, but I think your formula needs to be, and then he's got this, and formula needs to be the previous value of the same field. Something like self-referring. Okay. All right. So let's just do this. All right. So I think what we need to do is we need to create this percent daily change. That's the first thing we probably need to do. So, and let's see what so we'll duplicate this tab. And we'll go back, and what's this one? Okay, yep, this one looks more like it here. So it's kind of like we're doing it's almost like we're doing a sum product or something like that. Right? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we're just going to start building this, because let's just do exact date. And anytime you deal with table calculations, running table calculations, or just really anything you're not necessarily familiar with, just build it in a crosstab first for your own validation. You know, the data viz police are not going to come at you for doing this. So let's just, we'll do this. We'll do measure names and measure values. I don't need count. And I'm going to do start value up top. Flows here. Okay. So if we go back to his challenge and we say, reporting monthly report date. That's what this is. The start value is the starting amount of cash. Should match the previous month. Okay, so this number should equal this number. Yep. And it does, right? So that's good. The amount of money flowing in or out of the account for that particular month. Okay, so negative money, positive money. Okay, so that's looking good. And let's see. What other kind of stuff can we get? Let's duplicate this tab here so that we can go back. it keeps telling me to change my or check my internet connection because I have plenty. That one's not answered. Okay, great. All right. Let's open up a new workbook here. All right, let's open up a community forums workbook. And let's see. Whoa, 10.1. That goes back a ways. All right, percent daily change. Let's bring that over here. Is lookup attribute that of 0 divided by the lookup attribute. Okay, so the percent daily change is just that minus that. Okay. Here we go. So let's see what this dashboard looks like. Okay. All right. I told you this one's gonna be a different type of challenge here. Let's see. Let's do this one. What does this look like? It's the power of the community, right? So this is let's see here. 13,627, 847. Well, that minus that doesn't even equal the end value, so that's interesting. Okay, well, 8.3. Wow, look at that. I don't even think Tableau supports that anymore. Okay, so all right, we've got cache, we've got flow. We've got we've got cache, we've got flow, and we've got okay, so let's look at this. Yep. Okay. All right. All right, let's see here. This doesn't help. Let's see. Okay. Well, let's look at one of these others here. Percent daily change, TWDR. Let's look at this. Okay. And that's null. Do you need to like null 0 ZN? There we go. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're getting there. Let's do, what's this look like? Is that All right, let's start playing around with stuff here. So if we go back, we look at this. We have n value. So let's just do that. Let's just start HP, whatever that is. HP is the n value brackets minus start plus flow divided by start plus flow. HP. Okay, what's that tell us? Let's put that out here. And that's going to be a percentage. So let's do format percentage. Okay. So that's that. But then we need to do, so that we just copied that, right? We just copied this right out of the equation, right out of the equation here, right? So we just did that. And now potentially, do we just take this other calculation and just copy it? But instead of ZN, instead of percent daily change, we do HP. ZN HP, what's that? All fields must be aggregates. Is that because HP is, oh, well. Oh, okay, so that's because HP is an aggregate, so maybe wrapping that in an attribute makes that. Let's try, let's see what this does. And make this format percentage. Okay, well, just like that. That's the power of the community. Now, we did hear that we got off. Now, there's been some chatter in Twitter or on Twitter about this, that values are going to be off by about 2%. And the reason for that I've seen people talk about is because rounding errors, or not errors, rounding error isn't the right word, rounding variance, right? Because we're dealing with so many different decimal places and so many different percentage points, there's going to be some fluctuation. But that is that. And so what we're saying is that he's getting 171, and Luke told me in a tweet that due to different versioning, due to different versions of Tableau, which doesn't make sense to me, he got a different percentage point in later versions, right? So let's look at let's take a gander at what this looks like as a bar chart, or as a line chart. So we have reporting date, continuous, exact date here, calculation 1. Yeah, I mean, that looks pretty right. Now, this is a good lesson in Tableau community, right? This, and I mean, we didn't necessarily learn anything, if that makes sense. We used the resources that we had, and we copied from what others have done before in the community, right? So we used our resources. And this is now what you would have, as Luke mentioned in his intro. He created this data set specifically for this metric. And I think the reason for that is because you have to have each of these 4 values and as independent columns, or else this calculation gets really, and I think that's probably where he came in and said this is really hard, because if these values aren't already created, you have to go then create them and then use it as a secondary data source in order to show this change over time. So yeah, so that's interesting. Okay, but let's talk about what we did here. Let's talk about what this. So we talked about this, right? We just copied this right out of here. So that's what this calculation is. Bump this up for you here so you can see it. So end value minus start value, end value minus the summation of start value plus flows divided by the summation of start value plus flows. That just gives us our percent. That just gives us our reporting period change over time, which is what that is. So that's good. And then we took that and we just basically did our running, not a running sum, a running product, right? That's what this is. This is in Excel, right? We would just be able to do the sum product or the product function, right? But there is no running product. So in Tableau. So this is essentially how you do that. You take your value that you want to do the running product of, and you multiply it by the previous value, right? So, and then what's happening here is, so if we look at this, we're doing 1 plus whatever this percentage is times 1 plus of the previous value minus 1 to get it back down as a percentage. Because otherwise you'd end up with an integer or a float greater than 1. Or it would just be off 1, right? So this is accounting for these pluses that you're doing here. Which makes me wonder, do you even need, what is the purpose of needing those? So maybe we duplicate this and we just, what happens if you remove, like, why do you need the 1 plus, I wonder? So let's look at that. So let's go here, make this a percentage. And do we get anything? No, it just turns into zeros. Interesting. Okay, well. Okay. That's what it is. That's why. So you got to have those, otherwise you get no. So let's think about this. Why is that, right? Let's try and learn a little bit here. And that has to do. Oh, because it tells you right here, it tells you to do that. Subperiod, you can run the full TWR, which looks like this, right? Oh, so that's the sum. That's the product, right? So sum product minus 1, yeah. So that's That's really interesting. That's a really interesting technique, a really interesting calculation. But again, so investors use multiple measures to calculate the rate of return on a particular investment. Some measures can provide distorted results due to the effects of incoming and outgoing cash flow. Time rate of return has a unique formula that eliminates this misleading effects. Might be used when comparing performance of multiple mutual funds. Okay, so yeah. And I don't know. That'd be interesting. But again, not something to dig into, not on a live stream. So let's go ahead and finish this up. Since we're here. So let's go ahead and format this to look like this. Looks like we've got grid lines everywhere. Format our calculation 1 to be a percentage. Formula, nope. Default properties, format, percentage. Yeah. And then we'll go to a dashboard. Oh, he's also got the 0 line as a straight number and a little bit darker, right? So something like that. Maybe a little thicker too. Maybe a little darker. All right, and he's got a dashboard size of 400 by 300, so just a little itty bitty thing. 400, 300. And yep, sheet 2. Yep. Oh, this is yeah, we'll go here. We'll call it, rename this time weighted return. Oh, and then we need the we need that too. All right, so we need to drop the size of the line to be pretty skinny because we don't have a lot of real estate. And then what we need to do is we need to return the final percentage, right? The last percentage here, right? So how do we do that? Well, we'll just do if last equals 0, then time weighted return and so this is saying, so there's lots of different indexes. There's lots of different ways. There's lots of different ways that Tableau does window functions. So there's index, size, first, last, right? Those are the 4 big indexing, partition index window functions that Tableau does. Index, we know what index does. Index numbers the rows starting at 1. Size returns the total number of rows within that partition. And then first and last basically do an offset number of rows from the very first row or the last row in the partition. So the first and last calculations start at 0, right? Because it's an offset. So what I'm doing here, if last equals 0, right? So it's the very last row. Another way to think of that, another way to write that, another way that I've seen people use this, if they want to do the very last row, they'll say size equals index, right? So size, remember, size returns last. It returns the total number of rows in the partition. Index counts the rows in the partition. So where size equals index, that's your last row. And so that's just another way to do first, or to do last. So if last equals 0, then return the time weighted return. I'm going to call this final or most recent return. time weighted return, most recent TWR. Do that, click OK, put that on detail. Let's just see if this works. I don't know if it will. It does. Great. My concern, right? So if we do this, let's go back to our crosstab here. Well, let's do time weighted return. Let's do most recent TWR. As you can see here, nothing, 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 2, right? And the reason for that, we'll do most recent percentage, and just like that, right? So it returns that. So, because what you could do here, well, anyway, we'll get back to this. So there's that. So now you just go in here to your title, and what do you call it? What do we call it? We call it time weighted return. Time weighted return. And it looks like we have that one at 2 decimal places. Number format. There. Format the axis to be a percentage, but 2 decimal places. There we go. And we'll fix up our tooltips. Don't need that one. All right, let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. I like it. Oh, I need to add the title here. There we go. It's like that. All right, so let's go back here, and I'll tell you these. I'll show you these different indexing functions here, right? So the first one that we talked about was index. We know what this one does. That just numbers the number, right? So it starts at 1, and it just adds up the number of rows, or it just adds 1 to the next row, right? So each row has its own. It's basically a row number, essentially, right? You can think of that. All right, the next one that we did was size. And as you can see here, size returns on each row of the partition the max number of rows, right? So it takes 88 equals 88. So that's why that calculation that I showed for first row, for the last row, you can either do last equals 0, or you can do size equals index, right? And that will always be true. Speaking of those, if we do first, now look at this. So first starts at the first row of the partition and counts backwards, right? So the the last row in the partition is 87 rows away from the first row, that kind of thing. And then if we do last, it's just the inverse of first. Maybe. Oh yeah, there we go. So last starts at 0, goes up, and counts positive, right? So that's one thing that you can do. So other ways that you can use this, interestingly, so sometimes whenever you're doing a trellis chart and you want to do a label, we know that it's really hard to do trellis charts, panel charts, and add custom labels. So you kind of make a dual axis, and then you want that axis, you want that label to be right in the middle of your panel. So what people will do is they'll say where index equals the so right here, we'll just do it right here, right? So if I wanted to put, let's say I wanted to put this 173 in the chart, right? But I wanted it to be in the middle, right? I didn't want it, right? Because I could do, we could add this to text and it could stay right there. But let's say I wanted to make it really big, right? And I wanted to put it right here. So what we can do is we can write a calculation that says if index equals the integer of size divided by 2, then return the most recent TWR. Right? So where does the, and we're going to index this based on dates, right? So essentially what should happen is we should have this number returned at the 44th row, right? So then what you'd do here is you'd put this as a dual axis, and we have nulls. Why do we have nulls? Well, let's see. Of course. Let's just return 1, right? Then we'll just return 1. There it is. Right? So there on the 44th row of the partition, it added that, right? So then what you can do, we go back to our chart. It adds that at 1, and maybe what you do is you say, well, it's at 150. Maybe we'll change this and we'll put it at 2, right? And then what you do is you make this a dual axis, synchronize. Then you've got this right here. You can make it a circle. Make it really, really small. Drop the opacity. Now that gives you that gives you a mark right in the middle of your chart that you can then use to, you can say, show mark labels, and then you can put something on text and it'll go blank, and then you can come in here and you can write, this was a really hard challenge, or something like that, or whatever you want to do, right? But what this does is now as new data comes in and the chart changes and the index changes and all that kind of stuff changes, this mark will always be right in the middle of your visual. So anyway, so there's a little bit of learning for you. Index, size, first, last, good stuff. Learned about how to do time-weighted stuff, which was really cool. So there's this week's challenge. Hopefully you learned a little bit. I know I did, and I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time on figuring out exactly what this calculation does, this time-weighted return. What exactly does it do? Because I'm not quite sure yet, but we figured out how to make it in Tableau, and sometimes that's all you need to know, right? Build the chart they need, and then you can go back and figure out why it works later. So thanks, Drew. Appreciate it. Glad you learned a lot, and we'll talk next time. Have a great week. Enjoy the rest of the month. We'll talk to you later. Go forth and viz.